Welcome back, folks, to React Router Part 2. So before we go anywhere, I strongly urge you to download this file and have it available so you can look at the whole code and actually run it to give you encouragement that this does work. And once you can analyze the code and understand it, you can spiff it up, reuse it, and create some fantastic single-page apps. So what I'm going to do is to examine pieces of the code and help you understand how this all works. The first piece of interesting code is right at the top, this little piece. And it's essentially just to make coding life easier for you. Just look at the const, and then at the bottom equals react_router.lom, and then look at the bottom of this slide. What this helps you do is to reduce typing. You can type simply switch versus having to type react_router_dom.switch every time. That's all this is about. It's just a way of helping you to type less code. Next thing you've got to do is pick a router manager. Manager is my term. And in HTML-based, as it were, React applications, you're going to be using hash router. And where are you going to be using it? Look at this. The application level render. Typically, we would just have CL main in there up until now. That's all we've done. We would just name the sort of top level React component, and then all the other components would sort of get cascaded out of there. Well, now we wrap that in the React Router manager, as it were. And there are several you can pick. And in this case, we'll use hash router, and you see how we've wrapped it. Before and after. If I were deploying my HTML up to a web server, I would just change out hash router for browser router. React Router, it's a path matching game. What does that mean? It means having to put enough syntax and code into your React application to ensure that you match a particular URL path to a React component or multiple React components. Of course, one URL path that you put into your address bar on your browser can actually cause a number of React components to be matched and rendered. So it's a path matching game. So we have to understand the rules and we have to understand the syntax. So it's about controlling which of your React components, I'm repeating myself, that's okay. It's about controlling which of your React components get rendered when a particular URL path is selected. Good. Or, this is new, by clicking a link or selecting a navbar tab, which has the same effect of adjusting what's on the address bar. So the first thing is, how do we define our navbar? Here's the syntax. There's a picture of the navbar. And we're using these NavLink tags. It's part of the router package. I found I needed to put the exact keyword in there in order for the highlighting to work correctly. If I clicked on another tab, I found that they wouldn't unhighlight, or home stayed on all the time. I don't recall exactly. But anyway, putting exact in there made everything work beautiful. The active class name is this. It's simply the styling class name that you want to apply to the selected tab in your navbar. And as you can see, this is in the vrouter style.css. The rest is pretty straightforward. After that, you've got the actual words that you want to appear, the closing tabs. And if you take a step back, what do we see? It's an unordered list, collection of list items, all of that wrapped inside a couple of nav start and end tags. Here's the link where you can read more about these NavLink tabs and wrappers. So let's remind ourselves, this is the navbar screenshot and all the HTML that we had to define to get that navbar to appear. And where is it? That navbar, all the HTML is sitting in the return statement, which is of course inside the render method of the CL main. And the CL main was the top level component. What else is in that return of the top level? Besides the navigation bar, immediately below it is some HTML that outputs that nice little blue block with the music symbols, 1960s music, and so on. So you've got an example there of how to render a Unicode character in React. And at the bottom, our first glimpse at these switch and route React JSX tags. I'm going to go into a lot of detail about this because this is what this route matching game is all about. And here's your first deciphering of the route matching. The NavLink has a to attribute, and it's got the path name from the top level, which is just slash to slash hits, then to a year, and then to a month in slash hits slash 1964 slash 8. And they are matched with a route, the path attribute of a route. You can see the matching going on here. And then the final part, it says when you successfully match a NavLink item to a route in the route entry, this is the component that you will render, 𝐍𝐎_HOME or 𝐍𝐎_HITS. So routes, I think, help me think about this. It's a kind of if statement. If the URL address bar contains the following depth, it has slash hits and then slash something else, render this component. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to understand that this React router, a central part of the React router, is this path matching game. I like to call it a game because it lightens the intellectual pressure, as it were. And the way to understand it, or to help understand it, are a couple of very simple applications I wrote which will match the links on the screen. I don't have a nav bar here, I simply have a bunch of links, and the characters being displayed on the screen, which you see right here, are the actual URL paths. And then right at the bottom is, if I click on any of those links, which components will be rendered. And folks, that is the HTML. Please download it, please run it. So here's the code. I've just got a bunch of NavLink entries in a unordered list. And you'll see the actual to part matches the actual words that are being displayed. So life is very easy. And down at the bottom, I've got the route entries with the matching path and the components. You'll notice everyone has got its own component, CL state, CL state city, CL state city street, to match the URL. Now here's the tricky little bit about this, or the interesting bit I should say, is that the deeper you go into the URL path, the longer the path, state, city, street being the longest, it will actually render a whole bunch of components. So it will match every route that could possibly be valid. So if you look at, let's pick the one at the bottom, state, city, street. If you click state, city, street link, it will actually render components 1, 2, and 3. What have we got? Look down at the bottom. It will render CL state city, and CL state city street. Because the logic is that with /state, /city, /street, it says I can match /state. I have enough in my URL to match /state. I can also match /state, /city. So I will execute or render, as it were, component CL state city. And I have enough to match the last on the path list, state, city, street. So I will also render CL state, city, and street. So all three get rendered, which may be what you want, it may be not what you want. As you go deeper and deeper into a path, you're saying, I actually do want more and more detail rendered. So I want more components rendered. But supposing I don't, how do I match only one exact route? Well, this is where the wonderful exact keyword comes into play. Now you're saying, only render this component if the NavLink clicked on the to portion matches exactly the depth. And you can see that follow the 1, 2s, and 3s. If you click on number 1, which is just state, with the exact keyword in place, only the number 1 route will get rendered, which is CL state. But what about the one at the top, path /? You'll see that doesn't have the exact keywords, which means every single one of those links that you click will render default component. That may be what you want, it may be not what you want. But now you have much tighter control of what is going to get rendered, which components are going to get rendered based on the URL depth. There's an alternate way to match only one path, and that is using the switch tag. Here's what it looks like. The NavLink part is exactly the same, no change whatsoever. Down below, I've left the route path just as it was before, standing alone, but the other three I've wrapped inside switch tags. Start switch, end switch. And now what the rules are is to match only the first path inside the switch group and then break out of the switch. And there seems to be an implied exact going on here, because if I click the NavLink state, city, street, it will not execute, even though it's higher up in the list, the /state route. It will only render the component where the path is /state, /city, /street. Something interesting about CL state component, I just want to highlight this. When I'm in CL state, if I actually want to get hold of the actual path, this is the syntax you can use. This .props.location and then explicitly double quote path name, just as you see, will return the actual values in the URL. That's the end of part 2. More coming up in episode 3.